So I welcome you in this webinar because we all know Kashmir is the bone of contention between India and Pakistan, and this month of July is very significant in the political history of Kashmir. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir observe 13th July as Kashmir Martyrs' Day. And the topic of today's webinar is the resistance in Jammu and Kashmir against oppression and occupation. So the resistance has a very long history, and people of Kashmir are still resisting against Indian occupation and oppression. So I am the co-host of this program, and this is Dr. Sonia from University of Lahore, and I'm also working as an editor of International Journal of Kashmir Studies. And my Raja Sajjad Khan is also the host of this program, but unfortunately, due to poor internet connectivity, he couldn't join us. And on the behalf of Kashmir Policy Research Institute, I'm grateful to all the distinguished speakers for their time. And I would like to introduce the speakers for this webinar. First, I would start from Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed Khan. Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed Khan is a professor of microbiology, immunology, and tropical medicines, George Washington University School of Medicine, Washington, D.C., and Dr. Mumtaz Ahmed Khan is an internationally renowned immunologist and has published close to 100 peer-reviewed manuscripts in high-impact journals. And in addition, he has written a number of the invited reviews and the book chapters in the field of microbiology and immunology. So since last 1 decade, he has been actively involved in the activities related to struggle for the independence of Jammu and Kashmir from Indian occupation. He has attended a number of the national and international conferences related to Kashmir conflict, and he has spoken as invited speaker at various events, embassies, consulates, and state capitals in support of this issue. So Dr. Khan has been part of many delegations which invited various countries and met several leaders to solicit support for this cause. So he served on the board of the Kashmir American Council since 2010 and later became its president in 2014. And he is also the part of the board of the World Kashmiri Association. So thank you very much for joining us. And I would like to introduce our next guest speaker, Dr. Syed Mubeen Ahmed Shah. He has served as the president, Jammu and Kashmir Joint Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he is the director of the Conran and Cohetic in Malaysia. So, sir, thank you very much for joining us, and we are looking forward to hear your views. So, our next guest speaker is Ms. Farzana Yaqoob. She is the founding member and the CEO of the Mantak Center for Research, and she is a former Minister for Social Welfare and the Women Development and in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. She is young global leader of in 2017 of World Economic Forum and the member of the World Economic Young Global Leader Advisory Board. She is an alumnus of the National Defense University Islamabad and Naval War College Lahore. Ms. Farzana is also the Eisenhower Fellow 2016 and the Secretary General of the Eisenhower Fellowship Pakistan chapter. Madam, thank you very much for joining us. We are looking forward to hear your valuable views. So our next guest speaker is Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani. He is the chairman of the Kashmir Institute of International Relations. He is the human rights activist and member of all parties Hurriyat Conference. So Mr. Wani has presented the Kashmir cause in many international and national forums, including Human Rights Council and the UN treaty bodies. Thank you very much, all the distinguished speakers for joining us. So, without any further delay, I would request to Ms. Farzana Yaqoob. So, please share your views. It will be our immense pleasure to hear from you. And I would request you, each guest speaker will have the 15 minutes due to the short of time. So I think so we all bear the time in mind because we already very late. Thank you very much. Now over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. As always, extremely important topic, really good speakers, and uh, other than the fact that I am amongst such luminous speakers, it is always good to be part of such a panel because I get to learn a lot from the learned speakers. Why is it so important that we keep speaking about the heinous crimes and atrocities that are taking place in Kashmir? Is because sadly, when we compare the crimes taking place in Kashmir to the crimes taking place in Palestine, we can safely say that they are of an equivalent nature, but the world does not cry out for Kashmiris as it does for Palestinians. So when people like you speak up, or when conversations like these happen, what we're looking forward to is creating content that will be shared with people. We are looking forward to people understanding the issues that lie within this conflict. This is a recognized conflict. There are legal experts which call it a war. The crimes happening in Kashmir are considered as war crimes. But when we look at, the side of whether there has been any intervention which might have been able to help Kashmiris in improving their living standards, or to help themselves to protect them from the Indian army, we must admit and accept that no, there is a complete failure in us, any one of us, and I believe that we are all responsible. We need to accept our failure and then move forward, that we have not been able to help our Kashmiris. We have not been able to create a secure environment for any Kashmiri living in Indian occupied Kashmir. The people who are trying to save themselves, the people who are trying to fight back, are not terrorists. They have the right to protect their lives. We, the Kashmiris, have the right to protect our lives. We have the right to protect our property. We have the right to protect our identity. We have the right to protect our culture. And all these things and more are being taken away by the Indian forces, by the Indian government. And so we must find a way that how can these human rights, which are basic human rights, how can these be provided to Kashmiris? How will we be able to improve? What is it that we should be doing that the oppression can be decreased? We have yet to find any such solution. And I believe the reason lies in the fact that the international audience, the international organizations have mere words of pity, but no actions. Be it United Nations, be it the Organization of Islamic Countries, be it the different countries who consider themselves as the champions of human rights. Words are all that we receive from them, but no actions. And when our Kashmiri brothers and sisters who are extremely brave, when they act, when they react, they are caught, they are apprehended, they are abused, and they are called terrorists. We must ensure that these people who are fighting for their rights are not called terrorists. What they are doing is rightful. And the least, as it is said in Islam, that when something is wrong, try to stop it. The least bit of faith is to think that it is bad in your heart and to be able to say it from your mouth. And so, sadly, we are at least doing just that bit, sitting outside of Indian occupied Kashmir, calling a spade a spade. What is wrong is being called wrong. Our people are living miserable lives. We must ask for the world's attention. And in the meantime, we, the Kashmiris, must unite. Whatever has happened in past, let the past baggage and burden not drag us down into the oblivion of miscommunications. We must understand each other, because unified we stand. And if we do not remain unified, for sure we will break down. So thank you so much. I look forward to hearing and learning from all of you.
Thank you very much, madam, for a valuable comments. So now I'm heading towards Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani Sahab. So looking forward to hear from you on related to the discuss and related to this webinar title. Thank you. I think he is away, might be. Sir, I'm audible to you?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Sorry, I
you.
was rather
Thank
went
you.
away. So it's my turn.
It's your turn, sir.
Thank you, Kashmir Policy Research Institute, Ms. Sania Sajad Saab. It's very nice to see our senior colleagues, Dr. Imtiaz Khan Saab and Mubeen Shah Saab on this panel, who are the foot soldiers of this moment. Mubeen Shah Saab was a foot soldier in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and nowadays he's playing his part outside, and so has Dr. Khan been doing in the United States and in different parts of the world. Yes, you rightly pointed out firstly that this July is a very important month for the Kashmir, though all the months have become very important for the people of Kashmir. But this July has its own importance because of the 13th of July being the Kashmir Martyrs' Day, the day when really which gave a birth to a political moment in Kashmir. Because of that incident, we saw the emergence of Muslim conference, then a political movement against the Maharaja's repression, and consequently on 19th of July 1947, then we see the Muslim conference adopting a resolution for accession to Pakistan, and then we see a lot of things happening. And this July, on 8th of July 2016, we saw the martyrdom of Burhan Muzaffar Wani, which gave a new residence to this struggle of Indian occupied Kashmir. And as the people of Kashmir have put a heroic struggle against the occupation, I can say from last 47 years, even when there was nothing like this media or like these webinars or social media, the people could come to know what the people of Kashmir are facing. But after 1990s, we have seen the true repression of the Indians, and most importantly, how the young people of Kashmir, how the young women of Kashmir fought against the Indian oppression, and how each and every section of society raised against the Indian oppression, and be that a politician, was it a businessman, a student, so a scholar, each and everyone was with this movement, and this movement was truly a public movement, an indigenous movement in Kashmir. But unfortunately, we could not see the international support which the Kashmiris deserve. Why that support was not there? There are many things which can be said about that. But the main thing often is that associated with us is that we are not united. People say you are not united. There is not a united voice for Kashmir and all that. Unfortunately, when we see our people from Indian occupied Kashmir who are outside, when they are raising their voice for the Kashmir cause, they have to give up a lot. Like we see Dr. Imtiaz Khan cannot go to Srinagar because he is now on the watch list. So Dr. Mubeen Shah has to give all of his business and all that. He has a business empire, and he, as his position says, he was chairman, Chamber of Commerce and Industries in Kashmir. So he has to give all up because of live in exile, because of this moment. So when our people from Indian occupied Kashmir who are outside in the different countries, they have certain limitations. Whosoever comes forward with clear and clear-cut message, he has to face he has to leave the home, he has to leave everything which is behind. That's the problem with them. But we had a huge diaspora from Azad Kashmir in the different countries of the world. I would say they are not doing the well, they are doing better. They have been the voice of the Kashmiris at the international level. But one thing which has been our problem overall are not getting the international support in that way. We were able, to some extent, but I will say to a large extent, to get the support from the human rights organizations around the globe. There is none of the human organizations who has not documented a report on Kashmir. They can do that much. But our diaspora, I will say, or we people all who have been working on the international front, have failed to create our constituencies in the policy circles, in the policy making institutions, in the capitals, those circles who can create an impact on the policies of that government. We organize walks, we organize protests, we organize conferences and seminars, all that we do at different capitals, we do that. But unfortunately, in the decision-making circles, I don't know why we are not able to create that much of awareness or that much of support. There are different reasons for that. India is a big market. Nobody wants to now annoy India. They don't want to speak against India. That's one of the reasons is that also. But on some issues, people could have talked on these issues, but that has not happened as yet. But what we have seen, because India was given a clean sheet at every stage, though when we discuss the human rights issues, there is every name and shame again to call India a fascist state, as has been documented by the world's leading organizations, leading human rights organizations. But none of the states says about India's record. I am witness to 3 of the UPRs, Universal Periodic Reviews, which were held in United Nations Human Rights Council against India. I could not see a single state condemning India or making India accountable for its crimes, though the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, they submitted from all over the world 169 recommendations to government of India to improve its human rights record. There are lots and thousands of recommendations where to revoke the Armed Forces Special Power Act, to repeal the Public Safety Act and other black laws. But India did say in the council, I'm going to do it. It is our duty. We have our own systems to look at it. But when the United Nations special rapporteurs reported on the human rights violation in Kashmir, the Indian response was to them that behave like special rapporteurs, not like special prosecutors. But none of the countries' representatives stood up in favor of that special rapporteur. may God give him peace. He rest in peace. I refer to Christoph Hans, who was the former special rapporteur on extrajudicial executions. He died recently. So even in the after Burhan Wani's martyrdom, we saw the emergence of two reports, and the credit goes to Kashmir coalition of civil society, the people on ground who are even at this time terrorized. They are being victimized. They are being intimidated, harassed. But in the past, they had lots to face at the hands of Indians, but they did a marvelous job by reporting all those human rights violations. And Commissioner's website, you can see those are the reports from the Jammu Kashmir coalition of civil society. There are people like Parvez Imroz, Puram Parvez, Parveena Hangar, and their whole team for documenting this and making world know what is a document, 850-page document which they documented. When I presented that to a special report, he said this is a real FIR against the Indian government. But the states, they used to scratch my back, I scratch your back. No, because each and every state has a problem with these maybe or human rights or the political issues. They take refuge in one way or the other way. I remember I talked to a lot of international diplomats on this, that now the report has come, you have to say nothing, neither in favor of India nor in favor of Pakistan. You just say, we support the report of Human Rights Commissioner and we ask for an international investigation and mission to both sides of Kashmir. But none of the states was in a position to say, because they had their own reasons to say. But what needs to be done, a lot of blood has flown, and now our very identity is at stake. India has taken our land. They are taking the lives of the people in one way or the other way. They have taken charge of our all resources. Now, each and every resource of ours is now in the hands of Indians. They have not changed the language in Kashmir. That's Urdu is no more now the official language. 131 years reign of Urdu as official language ended in Kashmir, means that they are dismantling each and everything which is associated to Islam or Kashmir. But unfortunately, people at the international level or in these circles, they do give a lip service, but till date, I don't see India in any of the pressures. At least one pressure I see, that was when Dr. Mubeen Shah was released. That was from the people did a huge job at United States. His own family and others, they did manage it. They approached the senators, they approached the congressmen, and then it was possible. So we secured a release of one of the persons, but unfortunately now Indian government has again filed an FIR against him and a few other persons who are doing this job at different level. So we have been brainstorming on what can we do? How can we move forward? But to me, one key lies with the people of Jammu and Kashmir as a whole. And for particular, to the people of Azad Kashmir, to me is one of the key people who have a huge responsibility in this way, because they have a huge diaspora at the international level. They vote for the senators, they vote for the congressmen, they vote for in British and for MPs, MEPs. Some of the MEPs do come, we commend their job, but we can't see any resolution like that in the House of Commons, in the House of Lords. in UK or in other European capitals. So I think the government of Azad Kashmir, or the people of Azad Kashmir, have to invest in the intellectual capital, which I always now say that we have a huge diaspora. We can muster support in the streets, we can raise slogans, we can arrange rallies and all that. But in order to counter what India has done to this moment for last 30 years, especially from last 15 years, branding it as a terrorism, branding it as a sponsored movement, it needs capital uh, investment in, I think, intellectual investment in order to counter that narrative. That is the only way. We have to find out people like we had the people who wrote in New York Times. These were our people. The people from Kashmir, I always say, when people here are jubilant that the international press gave a lot of coverage to the Kashmir, I say always that these were the Kashmiri guys who assumed the positions in Washington Post, in New York Times, in Guardian, and then they were able to write those pieces for which we are very much thankful to them, and we are very much honored that our people had assumed those positions. So we need people like those intellectuals at each and every front who could write in such big newspapers, in such big opinion-making magazines, who can be part of such big think tanks, and also thereby influence the policy makers in the capitals. That is the only way. Otherwise, all those activities which we are carrying out at internationally, be it a seminar, be it a rally, be it something campaign, that is one part of it. But the part which is lacking, that is the intellectual capital. I will submit, and I have submitted to all the concerned quarters, that this is the only way. You have to invest a lot on this. This is the only way that we can break that international silence on Kashmir in the policy-making circles. Because when I don't read Washington Post, how can I see that the people will be reading the Daily Jung or the Daily Dawn or other things, what we write in Pakistan or Azad Kashmir, the people will be reading that. That is not possible because humanly we don't read the papers of Africa, we don't read the papers of Arab. So how can they read our papers? So these news should be carried in those, and we should have that human capital, that intellectual capital who can make difference in these places. That is the way we can make a difference. I thank you. I think I spoke a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. No doubt you highlighted the very important dimensions of this cause and letting us for our responsibilities. And definitely, we are trying our level best, being a think tank, and hopefully, other think tanks will also do that. So, for that purpose, we started the journal, International Journal of Kashmir Studies. No doubt, people are not reading our text, but I think so. It will create the impact somewhere. And many scholars will cite that one, and might be it will be very highlighted in their research as well, because that will be the from the Pakistan, and the researcher will contribute from their source. So now, without any further delay, I will move to our next guest, which is very honorable, and I would request to Dr. Mubeen Ahmed Sahab. So, sir, now over to you. We are looking forward to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for thanks the Kashmir Policy Research Institute to invite me for this very important webinar, because we are at a stage where we have to rethink of how to go ahead and how to, muster support from the international community, so that the oppression and the occupation by India is completely stopped. As rightly told by the previous speaker, particularly Altaf Saab, that they have done what they could do up to now, and now there is a need of rethinking the whole strategy to make it sort of so that people can all over the world understand what is basically the Kashmir problem and how to give us the necessary support. In this regard, I would like to say that, first, that the resistance in every form and way is how the occupation operation can be stopped in any form and way. And keeping in view the present situation, where anybody and everyone shows dissent is either arrested or called to the police station, it has reached a stage that even likes on Facebook or a retweet of any activist brings the person concerned the wrath of the occupational forces. The occupation force do not only occupy our physical spaces, which particularly in villages are the entry and exit of each village by creation of camps, but also they occupy the spaces in social media, with thousands of them keeping tab and watch on any activity done by a Kashmiri. They have enumerated every person in the village, and anybody who is missing, his or her family is harassed till they are able to convince these occupation forces that the person concerned is out on grounds of education, job, extra. These things we would hear were done by Gestapo of the German army. This being the ground situation, what needs to be done by different people at different times. In the case of Kashmiris who are within the occupied Kashmir, I know the constraints they face. I know the constraint my friends face there. We did try in a certain small ways, smaller acts of protest and non-cooperation. When ordinary students or storekeepers disrupt business as usual in the face of injustice, anyone watching may be inspired to take a stand. These actions demonstrate a refusal to allow abuses of power to be normalized. You see, this is very important. It may not sound very great at this point of time when we had moments like in 2008 or 2016 when almost whole population of Kashmir was on the streets. But even a hartal, which was yesterday, on 13th of July, is good enough for the time being in the sense because of the constraints of the Kashmiri people. The Kashmiri people did try in some time back, for example, having the lights off for a particular period of time. This gives inspiration to the people to, demonstrate a refusal to allow abuses of power to be normalized. In the world, for example, in 2013, activists created Black Lives Matter in response to George Zimmerman's acquittal for the murder of Trayvon Martin. The following year, Black Lives Matter organized mass protests in response to the killings of Eric Garner and Michael Brown by police. Polarized by the protests, few could ignore the issue of racial justice in policing in the states. In this case, the horrific killings prompted trigger events in the form of game-changing protest actions. This is how, previously also in Kashmir, for example, some event will happen like, Burhan Wani's martyrdom. The whole thing changed overnight. I was there in 2016. Overnight, it changed because of an event happening. Now what do we suggest to our people in Kashmir? Because being outside, I can understand. They will say, okay, you are outside, you are enjoying life, or you don't know what constraints we are facing. Now, small action ideas, we can give some ideas and which can be built on subsequently by other people, that protesting showing up weekly at Ghantaghar, for example, or even the village square at a designated time. People in general, you see, this is the second point, very important. People in general not attending any public program of any political party who represent and facilitates the occupation of India. This is one which I have been, sort of soliciting or advocating on my Facebook page, on my Twitter, that, to socially boycott. This is what I mean to saying that. Now, also, for example, dropping a banner from an office tower or a freeway overpass. You see there, because they cannot pinpoint, just like for example, although that painting, a person had done a painting during the Palestinian thing, he was identified. But in this case, a banner from an office tower or a freeway, these are small protests, changing one's profile, Facebook profile picture in solidarity with a movement or event. And the most important thing, Kashmiris within Kashmir and outside Kashmir, is by be consistent on our demand of right of self-determination, which brings into fold all, including who want merger with Pakistan or who want Kashmir to be independent. We cannot afford divisions. This has been one of the main problems, particularly in the diaspora also in the UK, because I am part of some diaspora groups from UK, and I initially was very flabbergasted that the majority of the time spent on explaining each other's position was there, rather than having the right of self-determination, so that India gets out. After that, what we do is leave to the people of Kashmir. You are and me are not the people who will decide. Yes, we can advise at that point of time, but not now. That is where, even in the United States, we have groups, even in Canada, we have groups which are divided on this thing. Please, for God's sake, do it on one platform of right to self-determination. And this is where, in my experience, says that in 2008, all our leaders like Gilani Saab, Yasin Malik, and Molvi Saab came on one platform of right to self-determination. And this is one of the very important points in my dossier, which the government of India created, that I was one of those persons who promoted this idea that all these people will come on one platform on this slogan. Now, the next part, these are some of the points which the Kashmiris who are within Kashmir can do. Now, some other part is about the resistance by Kashmiris outside Kashmir. All over the world, we need to realize that action comes from keeping the heat on. You see, for example, August 5th, 2009, after that, we got silent. The diaspora, all over America, everything became silent. Silent in the sense the heat was not on. No politician, we have to understand, can sit on a hot issue if you make it hot enough. When activists make it costlier for politicians to support the status quo, then to oppose it, we see change. All Kashmiris outside Kashmir need to work on this principle, wherever they are, to change the attitude of the governments where they live regarding Kashmir. This will correct, correct the point which Altaf Saab was just saying, that we have these reports of the UN, everything, but the governments are not working. The governments do not speak out. They will speak out only when the pressure will come from their own public. Now, second part, this is one of the public people who are representatives or whatever it is. Pressure need not only be applied to elected representatives. This is where other spheres of influence come into play. We can move corporations, for example, as employees, consumers, or shareholders, and have a proper BDS movement in place. And in countries where, and particularly in countries where from the maximum investment comes into India. I'll give you an example. Tech industry leaders felt pressure to resign from Trump's advisory council when their employees organized against using their skills to support deportations or religious discrimination in the form of a Muslim registry. We remember also the delete Uber hashtag went viral after the company attempted to profit from an anti-travel ban taxi strike in New York City, showing the power of consumer pressure. Boycotts often began. You see, this is very important. This is why I have been advocating this BDS is boycotts often begin to alarm corporations simply by gaining traction on social media, even before broadcast and media take notice, and long before they begin to noticeably slow earnings. Because end of the day, these corporations, the bottom line is earnings. And when their own employees, their own people will start protesting about what they are doing and going support to these, to India, then things will change. So this is my model in the sense. This is why I have been educating in small ways. Now I am trying to explain, because I got this opportunity today, that how to fight this oppression. So this is what it needs to be done, and this needs to be adopted, and further things added on by people within Kashmir and outside Kashmir, so that we are able. You see, outside Kashmiris have got a special, at this point of time, responsibility, because we are the only people who can speak on behalf of Kashmiris, because the Kashmiri people within Kashmir, my friends who were very, very active in human rights, in everything, they are being harassed day in, day out. Don't expect them to come on the streets. Nobody will come. It is very difficult. It is very difficult until a catastrophic event happens in Kashmir, which may be very unfortunate. Then when it goes, above your head, and then there's a possibility. But otherwise, these are the things, small ways. These are the things which we need to garner. Because I had the first webinar I attended after my release from, about 2 years back, was this thing only, that please, particularly to the diaspora in UK, because they have the clout not only in the form of number of people, but also that they have representatives in the parliament, that they have to change their strategy. There is no point in protesting outside the Indian embassy. Nothing is going to change by that. No oppression is going to be changed by that. Yes, once in a half you can have, but to create the necessary, you have to make this as a public movement within the country you are. Whoever it is, if Imtiaz Khan Sahab is in America, he has to rethink about his strategy and see how he can bring the people on the streets, local people. The people, first of all, from the diaspora. Second, I know I was in the US in 2010, 2012. I participated a protest, a candlelight vigil outside the UN. I was, and I saw two different dichotomy. I saw dichotomy in the sense that when it came to video stream it or something like that, the people from our side of Kashmir left the meeting. Why? And then I telephoned some of them were my relatives. They told me, they cannot go to Kashmir if they are recognized and they are labeled or something like that. They have family there. They have this. While as the diaspora from Azad Kashmir did not have these columns, so did not have these problems. So that is why it is very, very important to strategize accordingly, and at the same time, we have to understand what are our limitations of our own people. At the same time, create the necessary narrative so the narrative of India is broken. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate your thoughts, and I completely agree that small actions had a great impact, and no doubt it's a time for change. We need to change our strategies. Thank you very much for valuable remarks. Now I would request to our next guest speaker, Sir Imtiaz Khan Saab. So, sir, now I'm leaving it to you. So, floor is yours, and looking forward to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide to me to speak, and I'm really overwhelmed with all the comments which were passed by Altaf Wani Sahab and Mubeen Shah Sahab, and a lot has been said, and honestly, I really don't know where to start. There's a lot to say. A lot has been said regarding this protracted problem of Kashmir, which has been unresolved. And today we have gathered to commemorate the martyrdom of the people who were in 1931 were killed by a despotic ruler, Maharaja. And we are, like every year, we are remembering them. And I think we should not forget a people who were killed by Indian forces from, especially from 1990 onwards, and total about 130,000 people have been martyred, thousands of women have been gang raped, and we have hundreds of children who have been injured with pellet wounds, they are blinded, and missing persons, mass graves, crimes against humanity, which have gone unnoticed. The question is that we are having a lot of these webinars and these rallies and so on and so forth, and which is good. But the question, as has been said by the previous speakers, that we have to rethink our strategy. That has been emphasized, and that goes beyond saying. The issue, one of the things which was raised was that in diaspora or even within Kashmir, there is a division of opinion, whether we want to go to Pakistan or where Kashmir should be a right of should be given opportunity to be an independent state. Nothing is really ridiculous, if I may say, than this kind of thinking. At present juncture, it is the existence of Kashmir which is being threatened. And whether we are part of Pakistan or what we decide for our future, that can wait. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The issue right now is that India is not even accepting that Kashmir is a disputed area. We have to bring India to the negotiating table. Then we can basically, once India is agreeable, then let the people of Kashmir, like what has been said, decide what they want to do. At present, India is changing the demographic character of Kashmir. There is, like I said, there is an existential threat for Kashmir. And I don't know where the division arises. We have to just focus to get world attention so that I can put pressure on India to stop these gross human rights abuses and come to the negotiating table where people will be given the choice of acceding to India, acceding to Pakistan, or being an independent state. Diaspora has a lot of limitations. They say, I hear this. Let me talk first about people of Kashmir. Mubeen Saab said that people of Kashmir, these small kind of protests. That is okay. But one thing, and he knows it better because I have been out of Kashmir since last 35 years, but all of my relatives are there. And I keep on talking, and till now I have been able to visit India. I don't know how far that will continue. But they have done their maximum. In Kashmir is like a concentration camp. You cannot, nobody could say to people of Bosnia why they are not coming on the streets. They couldn't do that. Why they couldn't even participate in minimal protest. They were being killed by Yugoslavian forces. Similarly in Kashmir, nobody can protest. Anybody, there is a semblance of resistance. The person is punished and they can go to any extent. I was talking to one of my relatives who lives in downtown. I asked him, why don't you get that kind of protests now, as used to see a witness before 2019? And Mubeen Shah should know it much better than me, that what happened from 2019, any child who's come out or involved in sloganeering, he was picked up and thrown into jail in Agra, in Gorakhpur, so on and so forth. And their parents have no clue where they are. They don't have financial resources. Mubeen Shah was very lucky. They had his family in the United States who could basically confront the senators, the congressmen. He had resources that his family could visit him in Agra jail. I'm not undermining sacrifices. He gave a human service to the cause of Kashmir. But imagine those children, those poor people, their family don't have money to buy ticket and find out in which Indian jail their wards are languishing. So the question is, you cannot expect much from people of Kashmir. They have given sacrifices. And the reign of tyranny which is going on in India is undescribed. And there is no such example in history where people have been subjected to such gross atrocities. Now talking of diaspora. Diaspora has a lot of problems too. They have limited resources. Like in United States, if I want to approach a senator, he will listen to me, but then he will tell me, show me the money. You have to contribute to their coffers to make them to write letters and so on and so forth. Diaspora doesn't have those kind of resources. And there are certain basic things which basically hamper our fight for the cause, for our endeavor to fight for the cause of Kashmiris. I had appealed to Pakistanis, ambassadors, and high officials that there should be fellowships started for the people, for the students to get education in journalism, political, international politics, and so on and so forth. If you look at Indians, they have penetrated in news channels, in academic institutions. Most of the think tanks here are derived from those academic institutions. And there are a lot of Indians who are in the faculty. And Muslims or Pakistanis or Kashmir, we don't have that kind of presence. There in United States, the number of Kashmiris are very less. As Mubeen Shah correctly stated, a lot of them are scared even to express their views. They think they will not be allowed to go home. Azad Kashmiris are doing a fantastic job. Other day we had a rally in Times Square for this Martyrs' Day. 95% of the people were Azad Kashmiris, and less than 5 people were people from the valley. To arrange mass protest, to get people involved, you need mass communication, you need a lot of resources, and you need firm conviction. Now, why the question? We have to rethink our policy. We in United States have been protesting for the last 30 years. I'm too sorry to say, has it made any difference at international level? Have we been able to gain international attention? The atrocities in Kashmir have increased manifold. But as far as the international attention is concerned, we have not been able to get it. August 5, 2019, saw a lot of approaching the senators and congressmen, and there were few articles in New York Times, Washington Post, but where are we now? There is total silence as far as the international media is concerned. And Pakistan has to share certain responsibility. Have they dealt Kashmir issue with the importance it needs or demands? It's okay to celebrate Martyrs' Day, that Kashmir Day, so on and so forth. But there should not be these token protests on the streets of Islamabad and just thumping and basically anti-Indian, that will not cut the ice. They have to formulate a policy in the Foreign Office that how should they approach the problem, why they are failing to get the attention of the international community. Now, for example, let us take the case has been in Afghanistan. They have lost thousands and thousands. If you go to the Veterans Hospital of these young men and women have lost their limbs. America is saying Pakistan, do more. But what has to be conveyed to America, what Imran Khan recently said, the Pakistan problem will not solve. The reason being that Pakistan is facing the military might of India on its eastern borders. It cannot engage its army in promoting peace or creating a peaceful situation in Afghanistan. And when these two countries, India and Pakistan, are colliding with each other, there will not be honesty in solving the Kashmir, this Afghan problem. Any chance of peace in this region will occur only if Kashmir problem is solved. Arming India to teeth to combat China will not solve any problem. China is a superpower and India is no match to it. But if you try to resolve this Kashmir issue, both India, Pakistan, or even China for that matter, will develop that kind of a trust to resolve the other issue. Right now, if you put India and Pakistan on the table, they will not be able to resolve because there is so much of mistrust. And that mistrust emanates from the non-resolution of Kashmir issue. They are involved in bomb blasts in Balochistan. Recently, there was in Lahore. And Pakistan has not succeeded in communicating to the world body that India is involved in state-sponsored terrorism. Why shouldn't it come under FATF, which is giving very tough time to Pakistan? Every 6 months they come up with new issues and so on and so forth. Yes, these token protests, these webinars, these rallies, or the protests within the valley will keep the pot boiling, and you have to keep that. But like I said, the time is of essence. Unless India is put under the pressure, India has to face the consequences of the action. These human rights abuses will continue unabated, and we will have a different Kashmir. What we are afraid of, that if these can go on, in next 2 years, you will have a Kashmir, which may not be a Muslim minority state. You will have Kashmir ruled by Hindus. Right now, you look at the situation. I think Wani Sahab and Mubeen Sahab knows better than me. When I used to be there, all the top officials used to be Muslims and Kashmiris. Now, any officer above the rank of SP is from India and Hindu. People tell me they go to secretariat, they hardly find anybody, any Kashmiri Muslim sitting in the desk of it, which is meant for the top bureaucrat. So there has to be a radical change. There has to be, as Mubeen Shah also said, rethinking of the policy. We have to re-strategize. And Pakistan has to play a very active role. Azad Kashmiris, hats off to them in this country, the way they enthusiastically participate in protests, their participation, believe me, we could not have any of these rallies if there was not active participation of Azad Kashmiris. But Pakistan has to play a more proactive role. The Foreign Office has been reinvigorated. For quite some time, Pakistan was silent on Kashmir issue. And we have not been able to keep the momentum which was generated from August 5th, 2019. Diaspora has limitations. Diaspora doesn't have the resources which are needed to galvanize this movement, to involve the public. Pakistan embassies should have a cell on Kashmir in every major capital of the world. And they cells should be very active in informing the governments on atrocities which are committed on the daily basis. Kashmir problem cannot be restricted to few token days. There is not a one, but every day in Kashmir is a black day. And we have to think seriously. There is no room for division in diaspora or in Indian occupied Kashmir. There's only one issue. The issue is to bring India on the negotiating table and see to it that they are serious in their talks so that this issue is being resolved. Because in the past, they do participate in the talk, but that is just basically fooling the people. They were never serious about the talks. They don't intend to resolve this issue. They want to hold to Kashmir. They want it to get integrated with rest of India, to change the majority character so that this, from their side, the issue is resolved. And we have to be highly proactive. We have to be rethink. We have to basically speak with one voice and re-strategize and think where we fail, why we are failing, and how we can make an impact at international level. Unless there is an international pressure on Kashmir, on India, this problem will not be solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Imtiaz Khan Saab, for entering this opportunity to hear you and for our audience as well. So our session is going to be concluded, and I would request from Raja Sajjad Khan Saab for concluding parts of the session. So sir, now over to you, and after that we will end this session. Thank you.
राय साहब अनम्यूट करें अपने आप को.
Sir,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much, Dr. Imtiaz Saab, Dr. Mubeen Shah Saab, Wani Saab, Farzana Yaqoob Sahiba, and especially Dr. Sania for hosting this webinar because we were facing some problem from Zafrabad because of internet, and Dr. Sania has resolved this problem from Lahore. Our respected members have discussed different aspects of Kashmir conflict, role of Kashmiri diaspora, role of Azad Kashmir government, and the recent situation in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmir Policy Research Institute is focusing on research, and we are publishing first research journal, International Journal of Kashmir Studies from Azad Jammu and Kashmir. From your discussion, we will inshallah initiate some fruitful research, meaningful research. How can we play our role in Azad Kashmir, and how can we connect Azad Kashmir government with Kashmiri diaspora as well as scholars from Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. I think there is a need of coordination, meaningful coordination between Kashmir diaspora, government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, the people working for Kashmir cause from Pakistan or Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and the research scholars and social activists from Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And this coordination could be helpful for projecting our case at international level, and we can expose the human rights violation in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Once again, I am grateful to all distinguished speakers, and thank you so much for your time and for your valuable input. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us and looking forward to see you in our next seminar and we will host you once again. Thank you.